One wire GM Delco clone 24 volt alternator switch. So if you look in the video history for the Army truck, the 925 or 923 playlist, I think is what it's called, I took the back off of this thing and we showed the absolute electromechanical carnage that went on inside. She's toast. And you can pick one of these bad boys up for the low price of like half of your least favorite child. Or you can pick up one of these for 70 bucks. This one came from Eastlake Marine. It's just a 24 volt diesel alternator. I'm sure it's made in Chinesium or whatnot. One wire, 24 volt tap. You fit in the hole, no problem. We got it set up so we can use the original mounting brackets and all the original mounting hardware. That's just an easy no-brainer. The only part that took a little ingenuity was machining the pulley. I didn't want to mess with it, so this is the factory pulley on here. These are a smaller spline shaft, and this is a larger press fit shaft. So we took some hexagon bar stock and turned a new center. We basically made up some spacers there, and then we milled it down. So this way, by milling the backside of the pulley off, I'll drop it off the Jeep. By milling the backside of the pulley off, now when it's set in the mounting brackets, all of the belts line up, and I don't even have to worry about that. So this should work. This should work flawlessly. I am not going, there is the old wiring harness, I'm not going to hook it up to the old wiring harness. I don't have the book in front of me. I never bothered to check. I have no idea what other crap is connected to all of that. It might be a straight shot to the battery. To be honest, I can't remember. I'm just going to run a new wire straight to the battery. I'm not going to remove it. Who knows where this truck will end up years later, and some collector might really appreciate that I never actually removed or modified the original truck wiring, should they want to bring her back to life. So this happens to be the mount off of that motor we rebuilt that was sitting in the shop. It was just handy, so we grabbed it, used that motor as a test fit, and I can either pull these 4 bolts, yank that bracket off and put it aside so that I can put it back on that motor, or I can just unbolt these 2, drop that bad boy in there. So the spread of the Delco is a lot less than the spread of this old one. It's not rocket science. It's just a spacer. This happens to be a hardened spring eye that we cut down. This is the adjustment block on the Delco, so you'll find this thing slides, this silver ring here, and so it'll slide up and down, and basically you just need to tighten it up, and that will set the proper depth between the two. Get it close, because you don't want to squeeze on these cast aluminum ears. But that should be a far simpler solution. I don't know if it's a more reliable solution. Folks talk a lot about these failing. They're externally regulated. If you turn the key switch off in the wrong order, so if you kill the electrical system before the motor, then the charging system, I guess, can sometimes go absolutely haywire and just shoot crazy voltage, crazy places. I don't know if that's what destroyed mine. To be honest, it looks like the brushes started to fail inside there, and then bad things happened after that. This is just your one wire internally regulated. I mean, you can add the ground if you want, but one wire internally regulated thing. It does have the pickup sensor, so for instance, if you wanted to have an automatic shut off, it opens up your fuel solenoid, when it senses voltage. Okay, so that's not an issue in this, but if you were retrofitting an excavator or something like that, well, it's not going to be an issue on this thing. So we'll just get it swapped over, and then I'm going to run a new wire down to the batteries somewhere, somehow, some way. Yeah, that answers that. These holes were in fact larger, so I do have to swap in this particular mount because we did drill it out larger. So that's one more step. So to swap to this thing, you're going to need to cut a spacer. Any one of you can do that out of just about anything. You are going to need some larger bolts, drill these holes slightly larger. Now you will need a machine shop to mill that down, but honest to God, if you brought them the alternators and told them, would you please make the distance between here and here the same as the distance between here and here, that ain't hard. Cost you a few bucks. You don't have to do it yourself. I'm sure you could even source the proper size pulley. I just didn't. Instead, if I remember correctly, instead I bought the wrong pulley, was disgusted with myself, and then went ahead and just had Dad machine it. Anyways, gotta swap these. And there she is, nestled down in her hole. The solution to a problem that never should have existed. You know, I get in trouble because I frequently tell people what absolute utter rolling piles of crap these trucks are. And they take it very personal, like I am insulting the Statue of Liberty's mother herself. But the fact is, they are utter rolling piles of crap. Could you imagine in the civilian world running with an alternator prone to frequent failure that could be literally blown up by simply turning off the switches in the wrong order? And when it's prone to failure, it often destroys $600-700 worth of batteries, electrical components throughout the entire truck itself, even burns them down. And instead of solving the problem, you just drill the soldiers on turn the switches off in the right order, even though you know that 30 to 40% of the time that's not what caused the alternator to go tits up in the first place. Certainly wasn't what caused mine to fail. And the problem persists for decades. And the solution is as simple as an internally regulated GM Delco clone one-wire alternator, the most ubiquitous alternator in the entire world. There, boom, solution. Decades. You'd never do that in the civilian world. Never. Even if it was 100% key switch related, you would never run in the business world where simple inattention by an employee could do thousands of dollars of damage. It's stupid. And folks get so upset. I don't even go on the forums anymore. So folks get so upset. It's like I said, I'm insulting America. Terrorists will win. You know, have you seen how tough those axles are? Yeah, the Rockwell axle is a beast. I have been in it a half dozen times. Why? Because you seal this massive beast with a chunk of rubberized tissue paper. Give me open knuckles with grease fittings that I can take care of. Anything other than a chunk of rubberized tissue paper prone to near frequent or constant failures. And when it does, the entire axle housing ingests dirt and mud and water. And okay, technically it's not supposed to get into the pumpkin when that happens, but have you seen the seals in these things? Oh yeah, but the Allison transmission is super tough. It is. It's a beast. I'll give you that. That transfer case, though, back up and six-wheel drive low range in the mud, it'll explode. Go to pull somebody out of the mud, low range in reverse, it'll explode. Back up sharp around a corner on a bit of a hill in six-wheel drive, guess what it might do? Explode. Big old boat anchor turbocharged non-turbocharged motor in front of an automatic transmission, and make it prone to EGTs of 1500 degrees or more in a blink of a literal eye. They're cool looking. Parts of them are super tough. Parts of them are just garbage. Utter garbage. It is everything that was wrong with the military-industrial complex of the 1960s. Don't kid yourself. This one's an 84. No, it's a 1960 with some sheet metal on it. Everything that's wrong with that, right? Because again, in the civilian world, there would be consequences and penalties for stupid design flaws like this. You know they could have fixed that transfer case issue. This is a no-brainer. There's a dozen different simple fixes around the world that you see on civilian rigs all the time. Why? Because we would demand it. Because there would be penalties. Because if Ford, GM, Chevy, Mack, Kenworth, Peterbilt, White, had they released something like this, we wouldn't purchase them, and they would have an immediate consequence for the design flaw. Here, you and I foot the bill. You and I footed the bill, and I have no idea what the modern ones are like. I hope they're better. My understanding is that the Hemmets have a tendency to torch their motors from cooling issues, but then, you know, bringing freedom to the desert or whatnot. I don't know anything about the Stewarts. I know that the A3s solved a number of these problems, but they've got, you know, pressurized hubs and whatnot that are $200-300 for a set each wheel, and they seem to fail continuously. You know, we talk about deficits and whatnot. We talk about military spending. How about spending an extra $5,000 on a $100,000 machine? And I know that because I've seen the sticker in here somewhere. $100,000 machine, an extra $5,000 on a $100,000 machine, so that over the course of its lifespan, the U.S. taxpayer saves $50,000, $100,000 in maintenance and parts and stupid crap like this. Because you know that the government isn't getting these motors rebuilt for $1,200 like I did when I did it myself. Well, with the Chinese kit was like $900, the Cummins kit was like $16. But you know they ain't getting that, right? They're purchasing complete crate motors in some congressional district somewhere, and anybody who talks about, hey, we could make this small change, is a threat. How about we just give our guys equipment that keeps them alive and is reliable and keeps them going, but also doesn't have stupid tissue paper seals on a massive military axle, also doesn't have alternators that cook off at random times and destroy all sorts of components under the truck. How about that kind of stuff? Or, as the foreign guys will tell you, I'm just an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about, even though I drive them more than they do. Merc. I do what I want. Demanding better stuff. That's just another way of supporting the troops, guys. Oh, and it looks like every single radiator tube is leaking. I found these silicone ones don't like coming off and going back on. They're not as forgiving as the rubber ones. I mean, antifreeze is cheap, I'll just keep refilling it, but I prefer not to make a mess at all. What else has got to be fixed for this season? The oil system lost, the pre-oil system lost prime, and it won't seem to hold prime. So my thought is, I just mounted it up there because I never used the ether start and it was an easy place. My thought is I need to change the adapters and bring it down a foot. Let it sit right in here, and I think it's having to lift so high is why it's losing prime. I believe that would also let me build pressure faster. So that's got to be done with it. I need some rubber brake lines up front. I still got an anti-lock light on that needs service. I've checked the connections. Best I can tell, they're all fine. So it's either a wheel sensor or, I don't know, water in a solenoid that needs to be blown out. What else? It might need an air dryer. I'll have to check my maintenance records for this year. It might need an air dryer. According to the state of Montana, that's supposed to work. I guess they're totes upset with me about having a bottle of Windex clean the windshield. So I'll have to source a new bottle there. I think that's it for this year. I did the brakes last year. I mean, I'm seeing bigger and bigger leaks under the truck, but gear oil's cheap too. And I'm not doing seals until she weeps all over the place. You'll need a grease in. My boots, I think, are fine. My tissue paper's holding up. It's got a new air cleaner in it. All the tires held air this year. Score me. Which just means the spare is flat. Shay's singing for you guys. Yeah. I don't know why an Alternator video turned into a rant, but I swear to God, every time I work on this thing, I just shake my head in disgust. Shake my head in disgust that we sent men and women out into combat with things that could be so simply fixed, which could let them down so very, very often. But just a waste of my taxpayer dollars. I'm supposed to go help somebody remove hawthorn trees here pretty soon. That should be fun. I don't know whether I'm going to nose into them, roll them one direction and pop the roots, or just brute force and ignorance and just rip the thing out of the ground. Not hawthorn, black locust, so even tougher than hawthorn. What else needs to be done to it? Oh, the microphone in the back wasn't running. So I got to source either a new microphone controller, which will be my third in 2 years. So they're not handling the pounding, I don't think. Or I got a loose connection, also probably relating to pounding. But yeah, get the old we'll get the old girl back up and running, back on the road, giving tours at least one more time. I really don't know how I'm going to be able to build the house and run the company. There's got to be a limit to how many hours and how hard I can work. So there are big questions that have to be answered, but we're getting close.